But I know that we have had some conversations about a previous GP Red Presents video on kind of creative programming. And we did one early on in the pandemic with Frank Carson from El Cajon, California.
Uh-huh.
He's a director there. And so tell me, I remember you said that you watched that. So how are you, as you're looking at what agencies are doing, how did that kind of affect what you decided to do with this out of the box team?
One of the things we asked our teams to look at was, what are other organizations, what are other agencies doing? Because my thought is, there's no reason for us to reinvent the wheel. Why not build on what, another local government is doing, another, for-profit agency is doing? And so when I had watched the GP Red presentation that you had done with Frank Carson, what really struck me and actually got me excited when I was listening to it was the hopscotch challenge that he had shared that his rec squad had done. Aside from the fact that I love the Beastie Boys, and so he mentioned the Beastie Boys sabotage that they would blare out of the Recmobile when they would go into different neighborhoods. But I thought, what a creative, out-of-the-box way to look at, how can we, during the COVID pandemic, when most of our facilities are closed, when we have, all these guidelines for reducing the spread of COVID-19, how can we bring recreation to the community? What are those things we can do that don't require equipment, don't require, money from our community members, but bringing a little joy, encouraging recreation, and also, helping families during such a challenging time to think outside of the box on their own. So to look at the magic of, chalk and putting out hopscotch, of being outdoors, of exploring your natural environment. So that video and, that example and a few others that he mentioned, that was what really, we originally in our out of the box project teams were looking at, your traditional facilities, programs, who's going to look at the COVID operational plans. But it was that fun reminder that, hey, we also need to look at what are those kind of fun, new, innovative, creative out of the box ideas that we can do to create connection in the community.
Wonderful. So tell me, what came out of that? I mean, was your team, what were some of the fun things?
Absolutely. So it was fun in the beginning when we were still meeting as a giant team. So with masks on and 6 feet apart at desks, what we would do is each of the project teams would report out. And so when we get to the out of the box project team, they would share their brainstorming sessions, their progress sessions, and then we'd open it up for other project teams to be able to add ideas and, share, well, what about this? Or, have you thought about trying that? And so a number of our out of the box projects that we moved forward with not only came from that team, but came from the additional brainstorming and sharing sessions that we had with everyone. So one of the first campaigns we did was #ParksRock. And so we wanted to do that play on, hey, during the pandemic, our parks are now open for, active recreation, obviously with COVID guidelines. What are those ways that we can encourage community members to get out into our parks? And then how do we help showcase all the parks we have available? We have over 40 parks within the city of Ventura, but it's interesting because most community members are only aware of a few of them. So what we did is that project team went and gathered just a ton of rocks. They put together volunteers, staff members, community stakeholders who then came to various locations at our city parks and our community centers and outside with all of the safety guidelines in place, painted on the rocks. So they would do fun visual landscapes. One of my favorites is a rock that was painted like an avocado with a big smiley face and really expressive eyes. They, paint positive, words of encouragement. And then on the back of those rocks, we had a sticker that we'd adhere that said, #ParksRock campaign. It would share a little bit of information on where to go on our city website. And then it also would encourage community members who were interested to send us their photos with the rocks that they found. And so it was really wonderful because we had, community members of all ages going to our various parks, finding the rocks, taking photos. The intent initially was that the rocks would then be put back in the park So, whoever found it could hide it in the new place. What we found, lots of folks were holding on to the rocks, which we get, and we thought was really wonderful too, that little bit of brightness and happiness that they could take home. So we ended up every week, we would add new rocks, and we would expand the parks that we put the rocks at. And we were really strategic in looking at, making sure we had rocks on the west end of the city, the east end, so that every community member would have the opportunity to, within their neighborhood area, participate in the activity. But we loved it because it was not only a staff team builder, because we had so many, team members coming together and painting the rocks and getting excited. And, it definitely highlighted those with a lot of artistic talent and those who just love painting. So it was just fun to be able to see everyone come together. And then we found we had other community members painting rocks and hiding them in the parks too. So often some of the photos we would get were rocks that we hadn't even painted or put in the parks, but that, other groups had said, hey, this sounds fun. We'd like to be a part of this. So that was our kickoff #ParksRock. And then, of course, it was great because we could market it via social media. We could market it to the different community partners that we have, and all of our neighborhood groups that we work with on a regular basis. We could share, hey, we've got new rocks over at Blanche Reynolds Park, or oh, are you going over to Arroyo Verde for a hike? There's some new rocks over by the softball fields. So it was a really fun campaign for us.
That sounds very fun and pretty inexpensive, yet providing a lot of joy and color, and getting people excited. I mean, I that's the creativity that I just love. Yeah,
absolutely.
Have any other examples to share with us?
Oh, definitely. And that was one of the other things we looked at with all of our out of the box ideas. Is it was really important for us to look at, how do we utilize the resources we have available, so that we're, looking at, do we have paints left over from, say, an activity that we had planned in the spring that we had to cancel due to COVID? Do we have, volunteers that could support either delivering the rocks or painting the rocks? So it was really trying to be creative as well in coming up with those recycled or ways to reuse some of the resources that we had. With that, we also do every spring a corporate games. And so it's an multiple week-long event, Olympic-style competitions with businesses from Ventura County. So large businesses, small businesses come together, we divide them into different divisions, and then we do, all different types of competitions like kickball, bowling, we do a 5K run, sandcastle building. And so it's a really fun way for businesses to come together from the county to do networking, team building. And so because of COVID, we had to cancel it, but we had already purchased a number of the supplies like the medals that say 2020 on them. We also had some really wonderful businesses that we partner with for, say, the miniature golf or the bowling or the other team activities we do. So that out of the box project, they ended up deciding to do corporate games in a box. So they got boxes donated. We put together these fun stickers that had the corporate games branding. And then inside the box, you would find a list of modified activities, team building games, and things that businesses could do on their own with their team members or with their staff. And so it was a way of saying, we want to bring the corporate games to you. We want to share some fun ways that, while still following, the guidelines for reducing the spread of COVID-19, that you can still have your group engage in, these really great connecting activities. So inside the boxes, each business who received one also got medals, so they could hand out the medals any way they wanted. We had coupons available from the different businesses that we typically partner with for the games. So really trying to encourage businesses that if interested, you can still go and safely play these activities or visit these businesses. And then we also just wanted to find a way to just share with all of those businesses, again, that little bit of sunshine, that little bit of, hey, we're here for you. We're thinking about you. We're looking forward to, next spring when we're able to come back together and, enjoy, even if it's modified, but corporate games as a giant community. So
that's just fantastic.
yeah. Well, and we loved that because we were able to put the boxes together so that they're free. So we weren't, reaching back out and saying, for $25 or for $50. It was a way of saying, this is our way of giving back to, the businesses, large and small, that have been a part of this event with the city for, 30 plus years.
That's great. One of the things that we've been trying to do, you are very fortunate in Ventura. You've got a lot of great staff and a lot of great ideas to do these kinds of things. And I know we are approached all the time by smaller agencies that may not have the resources or the staffing that you all have. And so one of the things that Greenplay and GP Red have been working together with our RC associates is to put together what we call our rapid response team, based on looking at economic impact and all the things you're talking about, like the different types of recreation programming, different types of facility usage, different types of partnerships. And so what we've done is put together this really quick rapid response team under 30 days to help smaller agencies kind of do what you've been doing, with your out of the box team. So with that coming up and available for people starting this next week, we finally tested it with a small pilot community to make sure that all the tools and templates were working and could be done in 30 days. But it was also to help kind of, understand how you can impact programming, because in the prior years, we had recreation program plans that were like a year out, and it was tied to your brochure cycle and that sort of thing. And I know one of the things that we've had to do, and I think you have too, is adjust your schedule. So you're not looking a year to 5 years from now on your programming plan. You're looking the next 3 to 6 months. What can I do right now? Because none of us knows the outcome right now. So as we're looking at things, you've mentioned some of these free programs that you're doing really quickly to kind of generate the fun and the involvement. As we're also looking at potential economic impact and the impacts of lost revenue because a lot of our facilities are closed. Have you all embraced any ideas around new programs or facility usage that actually provided revenue that would help at this time? You want to talk about that?
Yeah, we've started to look at that. I think the biggest challenge for us right now is that our recreation and community facilities are not open. So our community, our county, and even our city has really been looking at a slow transition back to offering recreation programs and activities. So we have looked at, what are those creative, ways that we can, once we've opened up our facilities, provide programs that help increase revenue. Right now, we're really focused on, with the financial impact it's had on so many of our community members, how do we provide those free and affordable services? A lot of what we've really been doing too is we've been taking the time to look at, what services are unique to Ventura. So what are those things that as a department, we can provide that other agencies don't? And then how can we partner with agencies that are providing those programs to be able to either help enhance them, to market them? I know one of the things we've also looked at too is how do we work more cross-departmentally? So with the out-of-the-box programs, I think I had shared with you when we spoke a few weeks ago, one of the things we're looking at is if families are not going to be as able to, take as many camp programs or participate in as many of the activities that they might have previously, especially if their budgets are a little tighter than usual, how do we find ways to share with them what's still available in the community? What are those really wonderful resources that we have, those amenities that are free or affordable? And then just encouraging that, hey, for mental wellness, for physical wellness, let's look at ways that, the community can get outdoors. So one of the projects we also worked on doing was, it's called Where's Wendy? And Wendy is one of our coordinators who oversees our public art program. So she is passionate about biking. And I know within our city, one of the projects that our public works department is working on is bike trails. So how do we make this a more bike-friendly city? What are those additional, bike paths and trails that we can develop? How do we encourage community members to, hop on their bikes and use that as their active transportation. So Wendy ended up, wanting to combine two of her passions, public art and biking, recognizing that there was a need for that in the community and that we had another department that was actively working on that. And so, she's working on a public art bike tour. So she's filming 3 right now, and then the hope is to expand them. But what she's doing is she's found different public art pieces around the city, and again, all throughout the city. So putting together like a downtown bike tour, an east side bike tour, a west side bike tour, so that community members have the chance to hop on their bikes and then travel around the city, typically visiting city parks, whether they're pocket parks, larger parks, and then get the chance to look at the public art we have in the city, providing just a little fun fact or a bit of information about it, and then they can move on to the next. And most of the tours are also available, accessible for someone who's walking. Mm-hmm. And so wanting to look at what are those ways that we can work together with another department to be able to provide, more accessible bike paths that also let the community know about the public art we have in the community. And also recognizing that, with our general plan coming up, and there's a section, arts and culture section in the general plan, that trying to make sure the community is aware of, what are those cool public art pieces that are, at your local park or that are in the downtown area, and almost turning it into not only a tour, but a bit of a, scavenger hunt activity too. But just looking again at ways that, we could work not only with our public works department, the transportation division, but then we'll also be doing more outreach to the local bike shops in town to be able to, share if you're going on the bike tour and you need to get a tune-up on your bike. Here's some, local businesses that you can visit.
Wonderful. Well, one of the things I like about what you're talking about is that they're not only cool ideas for the public, but it's also, you keep talking about how they're invigorating staff. And I think that a lot of our agencies are having a hard time making sure that staff, everybody's got some challenges right now. So how do you, can you talk a little bit about how this has worked in terms of the out-of-the-box thinking? I love the idea of combining bikes and public art, those types of things.
Yeah.
Is it something, how do you foster that? Are you just blessed with staff that are creative that way? Or how are you fostering that type of culture to provide that innovative opportunity?
Absolutely. We had already started this prior to COVID-19. So really working with our division teams to look at, let's look at the big picture impact. Let's look at, what are those opportunities? What are those things that, by developing a partnership or by working with community members or volunteers, we can, make this program, service, whatever it may be, even more effective, even more fun, and have a bigger community reach. And so staff were already not pre-programmed, but already used to, let's look at, I always say, let's identify the why. So why is this important? Why, is this, valuable for us to move forward with? And then, let's identify challenges, let's identify issues. And then once they're identified, let's make sure we're aware, but let's not focus. And let's really, look at what can we do? So oftentimes when we're having discussions, I'll say, okay, great. So what can we do? What are those things that by joining forces, working with another division, that we can accomplish together?